Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Gay with God podcast. I am Midge Noble, your host, and the author of Gay with God, Reclaiming My Faith, Honoring My Story. And today I have a wonderful guest that I'm just really excited to introduce you to. We're going to meet Reverend Laura Bethany Buchleiter. She is a pastor, speaker, writer, advocate, and consultant. She has over 30 years of experience in various Christian ministry settings. She speaks on topics ranging from gender identity and sexual orientation to self-care and wellness. In all her work, Laura Beth draws heavily on her own experiences with PTSD, gender dysphoria, suicidal ideation, and the challenges that come with those when working in faith journeys. Laura Beth was a member of the 2016 Leadership Development Cohort with the Reformation Project and has presented workshops on topics ranging from understanding gender and intersex in a spiritual context to recovery from spiritual abuse. In the fall of 2016, she published a book entitled Shattering Masks, Affirming My Identity and Transitioning My Faith. And in 2021, she self-published an album of original music called the Seminary Sessions, More Than a Melody. She also planned and participated in the inaugural Free Mom Hugs tour to Stonewall Inn in 2017. Laura Beth currently makes her home base in Indianapolis, Indiana, while traveling the country wherever she is needed as an interim pastor. She has lived all over the U.S., including Puerto Rico. In addition to writing, speaking, and working with local faith communities, she keeps herself busy as an artist, musician, parent, and grandparent. Laura Beth, it is awesome to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thank you. And hearing people introduce me like that reminds me why I am so tired all the time. So
And that's
thank
even a
you.
part of your bio. I
Thank you.
didn't
That's
read the
just
bio.
yeah, that's that.
Those are the highlights, guys. And I will have on the show page all of the links to connect you to Laura Beth, and you can go even deeper because that's not all she does. So
Good.
we are
No,
so grateful
thank you.
she's taken the time to be in the Gay with God house and tell us your story.
Thank you, Midge.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
it's so great to be here. Yeah, the publishing of the book Shattering Masks and that subtitle, if I were to do it again, which I might actually do it again. We're on the 10-year anniversary of that
Ah,
publication, and I've been thinking about an updated version. I've been thinking about flip-flopping
mm,
that so that the title is Affirming My Identity, Transitioning My Faith,
mm,
and the subtitle would be Shattering the Masks.
mm-hmm,
Um, the It really was a season between 2014 and 2016 when the book was published of coming into a sense of self,
mm,
coming into some understanding of how I move in the world, um, and everything that I had done to make sure that I was moving in the world for the sake of everybody else's comfort.
mm.
Um, I have a saying these days that I will make myself smaller for the sake of someone else's safety,
Mm,
never for someone else's comfort.
mm,
Um, Discomfort is something that we get to sit with and we get to work with and move around. And I
mhm,
do it all the time. And I'm not ashamed or afraid to ask other people to do the same thing.
mhm,
Um, so it was a season of moving out of my comfortable space, um, in evangelical more fundamental Christianity.
mhm.
I grew up in a Christian military family.
Oh, wow.
Dad was, and I say that with a big caveat and asterisk on it because dad was a career naval officer. He took a commission in the Navy in 1968 instead of being drafted into the Army.
Mhm.
Intended to do his 4-year commitment and get out, and they kept sweetening the pot. And by the time he got to 10 years, he was halfway to a pension, so he stuck it out. So when I say grew up in a Christian military family, I was in the military culture. I was in that environment and still find a great deal of comfort from the structure and discipline of that.
Mhm.
But I didn't grow up with a drill sergeant.
Oh, okay.
So it conjures saying that conjures images for people, and I
Uh-huh.
always want to make sure. Dad is one of the kindest, most compassionate, caring people um, that I know, and so um, yeah, but was in a space where it was clear who a man of God was supposed to be. It was clear that I struggled to be that I was never accepted among my peers as that. Turns out because they weren't really my peers.
Yeah.
And so I was navigating the space. I was married with 3 amazing kids at the time. They're still amazing. Actually, they weren't just amazing at the time. They're still amazing now. But had been about 10 years in therapy for trauma, started dealing with the gender dysphoria, started my first venture out of Christian therapy because that's the only therapy we trusted back in the day. My first venture out of that was with a dream psychologist. And we started working with dreams. And one of the first affirmations I had of my trans identity was actually unintentional on her part because she didn't even see it this way. But I was referred to her because my regular therapist doing what I called conversion therapy light, only because she didn't have the resources or wasn't smart enough to actually be engaged in full-blown conversion therapy. We were just going to pray it all away. We were going to study hard enough. And so it didn't have a lot of the high pressure tactics that many of my peers have experienced in conversion therapy.
Right.
It was a more gentle, but just as shaming and just as diminishing version of it. But she didn't know it. She finally admitted she was beyond her space. So she referred me to this psychologist, and we met for 6 months, and I kept doing these dream journals, and she would get excited about things. Like I remember talking about running around the neighborhood and talking about how I feminized myself always in my dreams. And I was always referred to as Laura by people in my dreams, which was where that piece of my name comes from. And so I would say things like, I'm running through the neighborhood. She's like, well, what do you see? I'm like, well, I'm running by my neighbor's house. There's a tree in the yard. She's like, let's talk about that tree. And well, trees have roots and they reach up to the sky. What do you think that means? And I'm like, I think it means there's a tree in my neighbor's yard. And I was running by and that was there. And so it was an exciting time to learn how to engage myself in that dream space. And after about 6 months and talking about things, we were kind of coming into the conclusion of what we had agreed to as a time frame. And she's like, well, is there anything else? Like, is there things we need to be dealing with? I was like, we have never talked about the fact that I feminize myself in my dreams. You always just seem to blow right past that. That's why I was here. She's like, that's why you're here? She's like, that's not a big deal. And like in Jungian psychology, that's just another archetype. It's like, this is just a part of you that is showing up. And maybe it's showing up louder in your dreams because you're resisting it so hardly in your life. And that was the first invitation I had to be to do anything other than push Laura, down in my identity and actually give this piece of me space in my real life. It didn't fully take effect. I ended up, after some medical issues, some marriage issues, some financial, all of the things, in an attempted suicide, checked myself into a hospital. Thought I was going to be there over a weekend, just get some meds adjusted. I was on testosterone therapy at the time because my hormones were out of whack. And I thought, well, that's probably why I feel this way. So let's just, and the doctors and everyone agreed, oh yeah, you need to get your testosterone levels up. That'll man you up. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work that way.
Don't try this at home.
Do not. Yeah. And if your doctor suggests it, find a new doctor. Right. Yeah. So the first thing they did when I got in the hospital was get me off all of that. I thought it was, like I said, going to be a weekend of adjusting things, taking a deep breath. I was there 10 days.
Mm,
And
mm,
I learned later that one of the things that they noted is that when I came in, I had no emotional affect.
yeah.
I had no connection with my emotional self. And it's not that I wasn't capable. I had a therapist tell me later, um, she's like, you have a very high emotional intelligence. And I said, oh, thank you. And she's like, wait for it. It's like your emotional maturity doesn't match it.
uh,
So the capacity for it is deep and my empathy is high.
mhm,
My social, personal ability to engage emotions in the real world
mhm,
was incredibly hindered
mm,
through that era of my life. And um, so finally, while I was in the hospital, I got angry at the way they were treating another patient and advocated for the patient and came in and threw some of the charts down on the table and like, you guys are not doing this right. This person is not being treated well.
ooh,
Things that are happening should not be happening. I was visibly angry
mhm.
and they got visibly excited. And it made me even more angry because I didn't know what was going on. And then they realized
Uh-huh.
it and they backtracked and like, oh my gosh, no, this is serious. You're right. Thanks for calling it to our attention. We will get this done. And
Mhm.
they did. And there was some corrections on that front. But then within moments, the psychiatrist was, or psychologist, I can't remember which one, was in the room saying, tell us about that experience. Tell us what's going on right now.
Mhm.
And within a day or two, I was out of
Ah,
the hospital. And my instructions in leaving that hospital were um, to live more authentically.
ah.
And the doctor said, yeah, there's a lot of things medically going on that need to be addressed that aren't being addressed. But your biggest problem is that you're living two lives,
Mm,
this internal self and this external self. And you're spending so much of your mental, emotional, and physical energy maintaining this external self that your body can't keep up.
mhm.
And yes, if you keep that up, you're going to get exasperated again,
Mhm.
and might not, and you might succeed
You might succeed.
in the future.
Yeah.
And so, I was co-planting a church, co a partner in planting a church at the time. I had a job in the corporate world. Um, I came home and one of the first things I did was fire all my medical people. Um, there's several storylines that we can explore there, but
Mhm.
I told my wife, who had known all along what was going on in therapy, and we had rules in the house that helped quote me make it easier to
Mhm.
suppress the identity. And
Mhm.
um, the so I came out to her, and I tend to use the word coming around instead
Okay.
of coming out. There are moments of coming out
Mhm.
in these journeys, but the entire process is a coming around.
Mhm.
It's a slow arc for
Mhm.
us, slower for some of us than others. Just for context, I was 42 at the time, so this is late in life. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so fired medical people, got new medical people. Started having those conversations with my wife that I am going to be embracing more of this of myself, and she
Mhm.
wasn't. She That's not something that she signed up for in the marriage.
Mhm.
That wasn't the only thing that brought the marriage to an end, but um, it was a final straw.
Yeah.
And so um, we, as our as my co-pastor at the time put it, we took a sabbatical from the marriage. My kids later joked, like, you don't take sabbaticals from marriages. You do that from jobs and
Yep.
teaching places and stuff. So, but yeah, in those 2 weeks, just said, no, these are this is who I am allowing myself to be. And it's clear that she had extreme resistance to that. So
Right.
so we started the divorce process. It took a whole year and a half for us to really be on the same page and be sure and everything. So it wasn't until 2015 that the divorce was finalized. But during that 2 weeks, I had my first encounter with the queer community and the form of an LGBTQ or of a trans support group. We were in the Dallas, Texas area, just to put this in the context. And so I was going to go to this meeting. I had found a new therapist, and she said, go to a support group. And I was like, for what? She's like, pick one. You have plenty of options in your world right now. Divorce, codependency, mental health, other places, coming out in these queer spaces and everything. So I just picked this trans group, and it wasn't something that was turned out to be a long-term support, but it was what I needed for a few gatherings. And I was still using my birth name at the time. And the coordinator of the group emailed back. She's like, is there another name that you'd like us to use? Because you can do that here. It's like, oh. And so I was sitting in a hotel room. That was, it was a hotel room that I could afford for 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
In that space. So fill in the gaps, however you want to paint that picture in your head. And I I sat down at the little desk and was like, okay, I know it's Laura, but that doesn't quite capture me and the whole story of me. So I started doing some research, and Laura comes from laurel, the plant, the leaves, which is what they used to make the victory leaves from the original Olympics. And it just is a sign of triumph. And so victorious felt, I was starting to feel some victory in my life for maybe the first time ever. But that wasn't, again, telling the whole story. And so I really wanted something to capture this sense of renewal and rebirth and new life. You said in our pre-talk a little bit that whole, there's a death and a renewal that comes in these moments of coming out and coming around. So I was reading in the New Testament the story of Lazarus. Jesus calling Lazarus back from the grave, and it just says he came up to the town of Bethany. And that hit me. And so Laura Bethany together is my victorious new life.
That's awesome.
So there are people that I've told that story to who won't call me Laura Beth. No, they have to call me Laura Bethany. The whole thing. The whole thing.
All of it.
Laura Beth works great. LB works fine too, especially in text and stuff when you need some shorthand. But so that really kind of set the stage. I ended up I moved onto a houseboat on a lake in North Texas and spent almost 2 years living on the boat. Water is healing to me. I spent a year completely removed from the spiritual world, firmly believing that there wasn't one for me.
Right. I
shifted gears. I had my bachelor's degree in communications and Christian ministry, so I had been focused on ministry my entire life. Spent some early years in the Christian music industry. Like I said, been in church planting and evangelical parachurch organizations and stuff my entire career. So any place that would have I now see as an affirming space would have been a less than Christian space in that mindset. So it took a year to reset. Um, now we would use the language to deconstruct, to get rid of, all of the things that, I love the term we use in theology, in seminary, to uproot our embedded theologies. Um, and so pulling all of that out, and then it took a minute to realize that there was a vacuum that gets left when you do that.
Yeah.
And so I started looking to fill the vacuum, and connected with a friend in Dayton, Tennessee, where my parents have settled. My sister went to school there, and they followed her there. So it's the home of the Scopes Monkey Trials, which it's most famous for. I'm rebranding it also as the home of Rachel Held Evans.
Ah, yes.
And so on a visit back to my parents, I reached out to Rachel and said, "Hey, can we have coffee?" Turns out all the coffee shops in Dayton have weird hours, so we ended up having yogurt instead. And so over some soft serve yogurt, we started just talking about things. And this was the spring of 2015. So this is a year into this journey. And I was looking for resources about being trans and Christian, and couldn't find anything. There just wasn't anything really on the market. There's more things now, thankfully. I had started toying with the idea of writing. She said, "Well, have you looked at gay and Christian?" And I just remember like looking at her and literally saying out loud, "Why would I do that?" And she looked back at me just as intensely and just as puzzled, and said, "Well," she's like, "I'm sorry, I just assumed you're gay." And I sat there with it for a second. I'm like, okay, I'm a woman who is attracted to women. Yeah, that's the definition, isn't it? That's the math is mathing. And so was introduced to my identity as lesbian at that point. And she said, "Okay, if you're comfortable with that, now that we've jumped that hurdle, let me introduce you to some people." So she literally pulls out her phone and texts Justin Lee from what was at the time the Gay Christian Network. Introduced me to Matthew Vines from the Reformation Project, a couple other people who were doing the work. Austin Hartke was another one at that point. And so I started this journey back into faith spaces that allowed for me to be me. And one of the things she said in the moment was, she's like, "No matter where you are, what you're doing, drop it and get to wherever they're holding the Gay Christian Network conference every January, which is now QCF." And so that I did. That next January, 2016, was my first conference. It was in Houston. It was toward a peak of attendance at the conferences. There were a little over 1,000 people there. It was all of the worship songs that I loved and that were still a little tricky for me, even becoming a little more so now that I was listening to the theology and everything in them. But it was being sung by people that I could more deeply relate to.
Right.
I met Sarah Cunningham, who is the founder of the Free Mom Hugs at that. In fact, Sarah and I shared a king size bed because we were both broke as all get out, and somebody offered the extra bed in their room to both of us. So literally the lights out, she and I falling asleep, getting to know each other. And that has become one of the more beautiful friendships of my life. And so I just really started leaning into this space and started to realize that I had a voice. And that was the first time that I used this phrase. In our share time to the whole conference, I said, "This has been an amazing season of affirming my identity and allowing myself to transition my faith into that."
I like that word
environment.
transition, that concept of transitioning your faith. And that's important, I think, because of the void you talked about earlier, that if we throw everything out, we have nothing to ground ourselves. And
Yes.
everything
Yeah.
is not all bad. I mean, there
No.
was a lot that we went through if there was religious trauma in our backgrounds, but throwing it all out leaves you with having to build all the way back. And there's always nuggets there, I think, that teach us a lot of things, even if they weren't all good. I always say that I got a BA in bad theology.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the work I put into that and the things I experienced at that college was not for nothing. And
Yeah.
so I like the transitioning part, that I'm going to move through this and I'll transition, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to throw it all down the toilet.
Yes. And I mean, I started my uh, professional Christian life as a student at Moody Bible Institute back in
Hmm.
1990 and was there for 2.5 years. And I've always said um, I still think about scripture and think about theology the way professors and peers and colleagues at Moody taught me to think
Hmm.
about scripture and theology. I
Hmm.
just reject the conclusions that
Hmm.
they assumed I would come to.
Right. Right.
So the critical thinking skills that were embedded in me
Yeah.
were critical
Yeah.
in that
Go figure.
in that that transitional process. And
Right.
so I think it's okay also for someone who might be in the throes of that right now. It's okay to not see this as a transition
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
it's very difficult to be letting go and picking up at the same time.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, that deconstruction, reconstruction
Yeah.
model. Yeah, I know there are others. David Hayward, for example, doesn't like
Hmm.
the reconstruction idea
Hmm.
because it connotates putting something solid in place of something you just tore down. So I like
It's a
it's a
fluid
fluid yes,
reconstruction.
it is. It's more like replacing a old stone structure with an igloo that can I'm looking at snow outside, so the
Oh,
metaphor
yay,
was
there you go.
so there should be some fluidity to whatever
Yes,
replaces that
right.
space.
Ever
The
growing.
Yes, yeah, but also recognizing that the vacuum that you might start feeling is real, and
Hmm.
that doesn't mean you've deconstructed poorly or that you're
Hmm.
it's also why I like the idea of uprooting the embedded theologies, because the
Hmm.
process that we went through in seminary. So fast forward a little bit, um, I had kind of gone back to school thinking I would be transitioning to more of a counseling and
Hmm.
kind of doing pastoral work, but in a secular space.
Hmm.
Um, and as I started to engage with these organizations, realized that my history and my voice as a conservative evangelical still had meaning and power
Hmm.
in a space. I could go in and carry on a conversation
Yes.
in places that others might not be able to,
Yep.
and so revived my desire to keep growing in my ministry context. And uh, you mentioned the Free Mom Hugs tour. So as Sarah and
Hmm.
I were traveling in 2017, we went on that tour from Oklahoma City to Stonewall Inn. Landed at Stonewall Inn on Mother's Day 2017, but
Oh,
connected with people and really just started to be thinking more clearly about seminary, and connected with the school, Christian Theological Seminary here in Indianapolis, that welcomed me with open arms, and offered me lots of money to come and get a
yay.
Master's of Divinity degree. And
Yay.
so, yeah, so that's how I landed here in Indianapolis. But the process of uprooting embedded theologies was just literally pulling them up, re-examining them, and like you alluded to earlier, saying, okay, this still works.
Hmm.
This is still good. This still
Hmm.
tracks with my interpretation of scripture, with my experience of life.
Hmm.
This is superfluous. I mean, it might even just be extra weight. It might be,
Hmm.
holy crap, that was actually killing me.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually did some
Mm-hmm.
harm
Mm-hmm.
in teaching this to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I might need to go back and have some follow-up conversations with
Yeah.
those that I can.
Yeah.
Um, and so this stuff I'm holding up hands. I'm also
Yes.
realizing people are listening.
Nobody sees it.
So
On
um,
one hand.
on one hand, yes, um, you have things that are going to come back and you're going to replant those and they're going to take new roots and they're going to grow differently
Mm-hmm.
without the clutter of the garden
Right.
around it
Right.
and be more healthy. So, when I say love is the core of my gospel,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's without the burden of sin, without,
Mm-hmm.
not that sin doesn't exist, but without the burden, without the doctrine of sin pulling down a gospel of love.
Love that.
And so, one example of how that theology and how that doctrine has emerged through
Mm-hmm.
a replanting
Mm-hmm.
of that. So, yeah, so that's brought me here
Here
in
now.
a literal nutshell.
That's right.
Yeah, and I've been looking at the clock. That might be a record for getting from life was crap to I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah,
And
I'm gonna be okay.
yeah, it's actually pretty good. And there are good people around me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm in a liminal space, which I'm kind of convinced is that in between space is kind of my happiest place of existence. So
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
attempting to settle down after a lifetime of moving around. It's not happening yet.
No.
Um,
Nope.
Probably looking at a move out of Indianapolis and
Yeah.
back south, closer to family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
So how did your family of this, conservative Christian family,
mhm,
how did they handle, who you were becoming?
yeah. Um, so I first talked to moms and dad. We were in Texas. I was still married, and when I had given this letter to my now ex, I said these are things that are changing. These are
Mm-hmm.
some things that I need to be able to embrace in my life. And
Mm-hmm.
she said no. And also you have to talk to your parents about this. I'm like, okay, that tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Um the I also, side note, wrote a 17-page paper because good Bible college student right here
Yeah.
about how gender and gender identity shows up in scripture
Uh-huh.
and everything.
Uh-huh.
The first paragraph, the introduction of that paper, I say this isn't about same-sex attraction. I used a lot of that language that I knew and was familiar with. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what I'm doing with that.
Right.
I don't know where that is. This isn't about that. This is about this.
Uh-huh.
um, and the more I dug into this, the more of a non-conversation that became.
Mm-hmm.
Because like once I've deconstructed the binary that we're called to, the bimodality of gender, then gender attraction.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting with a pastor one time in Ohio, and somebody called me up there because their kid was coming out. And this pastor was not doing great with it. So I went up to have coffee with him 2 counties over, just in case anyone from his church might actually see us having coffee together.
Okay.
But I explained my intersex. We didn't even talk about my intersex diagnosis, which came later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Talking about that intersex diagnosis, talking about the biology of gender, talking about my own experience with gender. And after all of that, he's like, okay, yeah, I get that. This is making sense. And da, da, da. Um, I said, okay, now who do you want me to date?
Mm.
And he paused and sipped his coffee. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you. He's like, I think maybe just not my daughter. And as much, there were several moments in that conversation I wanted to jump across the table and smack him.
Uh-huh.
I didn't. Um, but it was like, that's the crux of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just there gets to be a point where it's like, for the longest time, so many people, it's okay. It's sort of okay that it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bring it into our house.
Right.
Don't bring it into my church.
Yeah.
Now it's grown to, it's also not okay that it's out there. But
Right.
but the discomfort starts with,
Mm-hmm.
don't bring it into my church.
Yeah.
And so that I kind of wondered, I think, before
Mm-hmm.
even I had all of these experiences and even the good language, if that was going to be the case. And so
Right.
this paper that I wrote, all of this was just setting up this conversation. This is who
Mm-hmm.
I am in a
Yeah.
gendered experience. And so got on the phone. It was my ex-wife, both of my parents and I. And this was not long after I'd gotten out of the hospital. And I said, there's going to be some changes. They knew I'd been in the hospital and they knew why. And they're like, changes sound like a really good idea under the circumstances. And they told me later, they thought at that point we were going to announce a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they thought I might be coming out as gay.
Mm-hmm.
They said there was always concern and suspicion. And concern and suspicion are the right words that they would have had
Mm-hmm.
around that. But I explained gender dysphoria. At that point, it was even still gender identity disorder in my records and diagnosis as best I could. But before I even got anything, I had just gotten to, there's going to be some changes. They said, that sounds like a good plan. My dad stopped me and he said, before you say anything else, just know that there's nothing that you're going to tell us right now that's going to keep us from wanting you in our lives and being in a relationship with you.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking earlier about my dad just not being
Mm-hmm.
a drill sergeant and like
Mm-hmm.
huge heart.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't, he hadn't gone to a seminar. There wasn't a lecture that he'd heard
Yeah.
that said, this is how you respond when your kid comes out, or
Right.
this is what this
Right.
community needs. This was the love of Christ just oozing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so
And
sweet.
yeah, so it set the tone
Mm-hmm.
for everything. There were many conversations over the next
Mm-hmm.
couple of years that it was, we had to remind ourselves
That's right.
of that moment.
Remember how much you love me?
Yeah. Um, my brother-in-law eventually, my sister has struggled with it the most over the years. We're doing a whole lot better.
Mm-hmm.
My brother, she was reacting as many people do. It was like, should we even have them around the kids and da 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 da.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
my brother-in-law, who was born and raised there in Dayton, Tennessee, um, I wasn't there for this conversation. It was related to me. He said, no, it's like we practice hospitality in this family.
Well.
And we might not understand it. We might not agree with it. We might not like it, but we're not excluding people and we're not
Wow.
making a practice of that. So, um, yeah, so a lot of good moments like that that really set the
Mm-hmm.
tone for hard conversations. We got to the end of that phone call, and mom's somewhat seriously, somewhat to lighten the mood, said, I don't understand most of what you're saying. I'm sure we'll be working on that and come to understand it. And she's like, I'm a little relieved because I thought I was slightly afraid that you were going to tell us you're a Democrat. Yeah. And I had not deconstructed or uprooted embedded thoughts nearly enough to know how that path would be going. Um, the
Oh my goodness.
so yeah, so there were a lot of letters when I first came out to them, and in that season of coming around, I had picked the name Laura Bethany. I
Mm-hmm.
was going to use the name Taylor. In fact, the book is published under the name Laura Bethany Taylor
Mm.
out there on Amazon. If I do a, a new edition of that, I'll
Mm-hmm.
publish it under my name.
Mm-hmm.
But I was using Taylor at the time, partially as a pen name, because Buchleiter is a long name. People have a tricky time pronouncing it unless you.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather always said, if I gave you $1, I'd be a Buchleiter. Um,
That's a good one. I like
yeah.
it.
So if um, but also too I kind of assumed that the Buchleiter family as a whole would not want to be associated with me in this
Ah,
community.
ah,
I was worried about my kids and
yeah.
being in school and
Yeah.
And knowing that I was moving towards some advocacy work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was just some distancing, and I was wrestling with the whole birth name. And
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, and if you notice, I use the term birth name, not dead name.
Yep.
I'm okay if some people
Mm-hmm.
feel like dead name is more appropriate
Yeah.
to that
It's all
past life.
perspective.
It
Yep.
really is. But my relationship to that name, it is the birth name, and it's
Mm-hmm.
the one I used until it didn't work anymore.
Right.
Um, yeah, so I was using Laura Bethany Taylor, and there were letters going back and forth as moms and dad helped me buy the boat, and you know, getting settled and reorienting and
Mm-hmm.
visits. Actually, I don't know that I had any visits back at this point, but handwritten snail mail letters
Mm-hmm.
between us. And in one of those letters, Dad said, "I'm starting to understand.
Aw.
I'm starting to see it."
Mm-hmm.
And um, one of the things that as he got away from the Navy, and he was a logistics officer, supply officer, and so everything was structured and engineered. And as he got
Mm-hmm.
away from that and started to dig into his more of his own creative self, mostly in a wood shop,
Mm-hmm.
we started connecting on a creative level.
Aw.
And so that just opened some different avenues of relationship. And so he
Mm-hmm.
started reflecting on that and being able to see me, my life journey from that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
my music, my art, my everything. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I'm starting to get it. It's like what really makes me sad is that you would walk away from the family name.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's it. Then I hadn't changed it legally at that point.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
I was like, done deal.
Yep.
So kept the name and haven't looked back on that. So yeah, it's been a journey with them. It's
Mm-hmm.
been a process of coming around,
Yeah.
of breaking into new spaces. There was a great moment when I'd gone through the legal process and had um, the gender marker in my name changed and had the intersex diagnosis. And one of the blessings of my life is that I was born in California.
Ah.
Um, and so sent them all of this information to their vital records office.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get a modified birth certificate. I got a corrected birth certificate
How nice.
that was, oh, we're sorry for our mistake.
Oh, that's lovely.
Here is the corrected birth
Wow.
certificate that shows
Wow.
me as female.
Excellent.
Um, so yeah, I mean, though while I was raised and socialized male, I can technically say that I've been assigned
Absolutely.
female at birth, which
Yes,
in
that works.
this legal environment is
Mm-hmm.
significant.
It is.
I've also worked very hard not to lean too deeply into the intersex identity at the expense of people understanding the trans identity.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
Mm-hmm.
temptation of people to say, okay, well, that sure, this works for you, but other people just chose this and
Right.
everything.
Right.
Intersex and gender biology is so complicated that,
Yes.
um, yeah, we don't
Yeah.
know. We can't know. And we
Yeah.
don't need to know. We shouldn't need to know
Right. Right.
to
And
accept
nobody else
people
should
for who they
care.
are. Right.
Nobody else should care.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, so it's been a great journey. Part of the reason that I'm looking to move south is to be closer to them as they're aging. My
Mm-hmm.
sister is right there and has done and will continue to do a fabulous job taking care of them and her in-laws who are right there too. But I have a desire to not put all of that on her for
Yeah.
this next season of life. And so
Yeah.
to be within a half day's drive would
That's
be
nice. Yeah.
would be good. So
Yeah. Well, Laura Bethany, I do love that name. And I love the story behind it. I'm
thank you.
so
Me too.
honored to have you here and to hear your
It's great to be
story.
here.
And
Thanks.
it it was one that I just I can recognize myself in you in some places,
Mm,
especially with the conservative thing, the fear of coming out, all of those things. And your grace through all of your journey. I know it wasn't always easy and there were bumps along the way that were devastating. but you shine. I mean, your whole essence shines on screen, and I
Mm,
wish everybody could see it because I can feel the energy in you that can love yourself and appreciate yourself and still be that one step close to not loving yourself, but but you've made it
yeah.
to the other side. I mean, we're all right there on the line, and
Yeah.
especially now in this toxic time where we're all called into question and we're all, just one experience away from having our rights taken.
Yes.
Always,
Yeah.
always. So I like your light and I like how you bring that onto the screen. And, I would love to have you come back because we didn't even get to talk about spiritual direction. And I want to hear more about that from you.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's an important part of who you are. And I want to explore that a little bit more if you're open to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. If I
Yay.
could leave you with a thought, one of my
Yes.
one of my mottos right now is that I am whole and seeking wholeness.
Mm,
I am
yes.
complete and all myself as I am, but I also know that there's so much more to me that I've yet to learn and discover. And
Hmm.
so both can be true
Yes.
in the same moment. And
Yes.
yeah, thank you for inviting me on and
Oh,
asking the
absolutely.
questions. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. And guys, I really want to thank you for honoring us with your presence online and always sharing and subscribing. If you noticed that we were posting that we hit 30,000 downloads, which is amazing to me, that just means that I'm sitting here for a
Mhm.
lot of time.
That's a
And
lot.
I've enjoyed a lot of minutes
That's
with people.
fantastic.
But thank you so much supporting the Gay with God show page. And we will have all of Laura Beth's information at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. And remember to check out our Facebook group, Gay with God, where we do a monthly Zoom group entitled My Faith Journey. And the group of people who come support each other and we laugh and sometimes we get really, really angry. And sometimes we do something really smart. And then it just depends on what we want to do. So please join us for that. And remember to answer all the questions to get into the Gay with God group because that's where I can keep us all safe. So answer all those questions so I can invite you inside. If you are listening to this podcast and are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with the God of your understanding, if you identify as LGBTQI plus, or not even sure if you're gay, God has always been within you. Even when you didn't know it, you have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always,